We're going to be talking about two of the most common, most usual things that you're going to have to deal with in your counseling. The first one is pride, and this relates directly to self-worth issues, as I'll show you in a little bit. And the second one is selfish desires, and that relates directly to significance issues in your life. Because when people want to be significant in life, what do they want? All sorts of things, and what do they want? Because they're selfish. Or we talked about the idea about salvation, how it delivers us from our selfishness and takes us into love. But we'll get to that. Let's start with pride. We find the story of pride in the Old Testament, and we find it in the story of Nebuchadnezzar. Now we're going to first think about pride a little bit. What is pride? It's when you think you're somebody. When you think you've accomplished something. How do you think God looks at that? Pride is really saying to God, God, I don't need you. I can do this myself. I can handle it, thank you. And what does God do? We've already seen this, and we talked about security. What does God usually do in those situations? He said, okay, go ahead. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. And we saw that you even take yourself out of the very protection of God when you get into pride. Now, how do we get into pride? Well, pride is one of these things where we have two ditches. You get too far one direction or too far the other direction, you're in the ditch either way. When you feel really bad about yourself and you have low self-image and you are really feeling insecure and unworthy, many times you'll go to pride on the other side to try to compensate. The further you feel down in the hole, the more you want to feel higher, and you give a false report on how things are going, right? So if you're feeling prideful, one of the things that I always look for is, okay, why am I feeling so insecure? Why am I feeling so worthless? What did somebody say? What went on? What's going on? Because you may not see it. You may just feel that pride rising up inside yourself. Or when you're taking on a very difficult task and you're not sure you're going to make it, you think you're going to flunk this class as an example. Then you might find yourself rising up in pride. What would be some of the symptoms of pride? How about bragging? You might go around telling everyone of how good you are, or telling about something good you did, or how you're going to handle this class, and how wonderful you're going to do in this class. Let me just tell you a very embarrassing story about me, about pride. I remember this very vividly because, see, anything you deal with that deals with self-worth, you're going to remember in living color, right? And I was in junior high, and I had wanted to take Latin for some crazy reason, but they didn't have that class, so I got into journalism. And we had a paper at this junior high, and so I was in the journalism staff. We went to this journalism competition. And so we all, went, they were explaining how they were going to do stuff, and so on. And of course, we had all the answers, you know what I mean? My teacher obviously knew everything, and that we knew everything. These other kids, were going to compete against, they didn't know anything at all, you know what I mean? And, they were talking about how many words were in a deal. Well, we used inches, inches of text, how it fit in the paper, and, Of course, what's really going on inside of me? I'm spooked, right? But, so we have them, so we got together, they told us what we're going to do in the afternoon. We're going to go back and write stories and so on for this competition. And here I am at noon, and we're all meeting together, and I say, man, this is going to be easy. I mean, they don't know anything. I mean, I'm just going on and on and on. And of course, you know what happened. That afternoon we get going, we're supposed to write some story and so on. I totally choked. I mean, I don't even think I got the story totally finished. You know what I mean? And here we are for the awards, right? And the third person, the third runner-up, you know, and so on, that got the third place award was this. Not my name. And the second one was not my name. And the first winner was not my name. What do you think the other kids did? Boy, weren't you great. You really showed them, didn't you? Man, you were wonderful, weren't you? How do you think I felt? See, later on in my life, because I started out struggling with low self-worth, God took me back and showed me. And every single major problem in my life was due to pride. See, that's why I learned to step on pride. Anytime those thoughts come up, I just know first, okay, why am I feeling so insecure? And second, I better step on this thing right now because I'm going down if I don't. What does the Bible say about pride? Pride comes before the fall, right? That's literal, but that's another story we'll talk about in a little bit. Let's look at the Bible and see what the Bible says. See, we're talking about the story of Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel. And we find out, first we got to find the people and what we're talking about. Nebuchadnezzar, his name literally means Nebo is the protector from misfortune. And when we're doing types and shadows, that means we're at the third level of interpretation of the Bible, and everything has meaning. So that means this guy's name, and realize God's the only one that can do this. Have real people named exactly what he wants them named, and everything to happen exactly like he wants it to happen, so it will have spiritual meaning and psychological meaning for us today. See, no one else could possibly do that, right? It's sort of like God was writing a quality fiction book, only all the actors were you and I, and other people in history. Because he wants to teach us things through these. Now, who is the protector of misfortune in our lives? That's the question. Yourself. Who do you want to take care of? Me, myself, and I. I'm the one who looks out for myself. How many can agree with that? So therefore, I'm suggesting Nebuchadnezzar in this story is talking about you. Is talking about yourself and what yourself wants to do. See, if I have a problem with pride, where is it going to lie? In myself, me taking care of me coping with my self-worth. And by the way, on the other side of it, I missed the other ditch. The other ditch is when things are going well. When things are going well, what do you say? Yeah, I sure. Wasn't that good? Man, I'm really somebody, aren't I? Isn't that wonderful? So do you see, in one hand, when you're feeling insecure, you tend to go to pride, and when things are going well, you tend to go to pride. I'll give you one of the hints. Step on the pride, keep down the highs, and you won't have the lows. So let's look at the story. Nebuchadnezzar was at rest. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. So which end is this? Things are going too well, aren't they? I saw a dream that made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions troubled my head. The visions of my head troubled me. Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, and they made known unto me the interpretation of the dream. Then came the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers, and I told the dream to them, but they did not make known to me the interpretation thereof. Why can't the world understand this? Because this is normal to the world. This isn't anything abnormal. Not only that, what else does it say? When you struggle with pride, does God give you a warning? Yes. You have something deep down inside of yourself when you're bragging that you know that this isn't right. You have something deep down in yourself when you get in pride, you know this isn't right. Remember, you're just 1 out of 6 billion people on this planet that's so small we can't even find it in the universe. And you're so great and wonderful, aren't you? Do you see how ridiculous this whole thing is? The Spirit, which includes our conscience, will warn us against pride. In this case, I'm going to suggest Daniel represents the Spirit. Why? Look at verse 9. O Belshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the Spirit of the Holy God is in thee. You see what I'm saying? He is saying directly to him, you're the Spirit. And no secret troubleth thee. Tell me the vision of my dream that I have seen and the interpretation thereof. Now the problem here is everyone's freaking out. Because see, the king doesn't want to just tell him the interpretation. Tell me the dream too. How many of you think you can figure out what somebody's dream is when they don't tell it to you? Could make it a little bit more difficult. Thus were the visions of my head in my bed. I saw, and behold, now he's telling the dream, a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto the heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. Nebuchadnezzar was the king that built the entire empire of Babylon, that at that time ruled almost the entire earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was the meat for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heavens dwelt in the boughs thereof, and all flesh was fed in it. And I saw a vision of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from heaven. Who are the watchers and the holy ones? God and the angels. Do you know they're watching you right now? And they're watching what's going through your head right now? He cried aloud and said, hew down the tree, and cut off his branches, shake his leaves, and scatter his fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from his branches. This doesn't sound too good, does it? Verse 15, nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass. In the tender grass of the field, let it be wet by the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from a man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. Now this is all we need to interpret now, all of those individual things that we look at. Okay, who's the big tree? Nebuchadnezzar, right? Because he flourished. He had all these leaves. What do leaves normally stand for? Life. Okay? And he had fruit. He produced all this good stuff. I mean, this is a huge, wonderful kingdom at this time. And all the animals came, and the birds came in the trees, and the animals had shade from the tree, and so on and so forth. What are those? All the people and all the nations were under. And he was a beautiful and wonderful looking tree. Does God want to make you miserable? Or does God want to have you flourish? See, he wants you to flourish, but what does he not want? You to take credit for it. What does the Bible say in 1 Corinthians? It says that God has chosen the foolish things of this world to bring to naught the wise, and the weak things to bring to naught the mighty, and base things to bring to naught those that are... See, wise, mighty, base, those things that don't even exist, that no flesh may glory in his presence. So God has no problem with you being blessed and you even being important or anything else, if you don't end up in pride concerning that. the prediction here? What's going to happen if you end up in pride in your life? The watchers are going to cut you down, and you're going to end up as a beast with chains of iron and brass, and the dew like an animal. Think about that, really, because we're going to see it actually happen here in a little bit. What does iron normally stand for? Iron means very strong. So what's it saying? God's intent here, and what God does, is going to be very strong and very powerful. What's brass? Shame. How do you feel? How do you think I felt when I got absolutely nothing in that competition after spewing my big mouth? Shame. Yeah. But notice something. See, God is extremely merciful. See, did he totally destroy, or did he leave the tree? Did he leave a stump? He left a stump, didn't he? Because a stump can grow again. I can tell you that that's the case. We have a beaver in our lake, and he decided to chop all my trees down. And I had this one little apple tree, just a brand new one I just planted. It was only this big around. And of course I put plastic on the sides of it to protect it. And the beaver in one chomp went whack. So here's my plastic up there. The little stuff of the tree stuck out. That was all that was left. But I left it, and it grew up today. From that stump it grew, and it now has like 3 branches going up or something. So we'll try again, see if the beaver comes back when it grows up. So what's it saying here? The dew stands for the gracious, refreshing blessings that God wants for you. See, God's not against you. God just knows that pride is going to destroy you and take you in a direction that is going to mess your life up. God is not trying to ruin your life. In the Old Testament, it tells us it's God's job to destroy your plans and to remove pride far from you. Why? For your good, because are your plans you're supposed to be having? No, it's supposed to be his plans, right? And why does he remove pride far from you? So you'll learn to yield to him and to trust him and to get your worth from him instead of trying to do it yourself and build up your own worth. This verse is telling us that God's power to put down pride is irresistible and ends in our shame. He makes the proud person feel weak and unstable, but showers him with gracious refreshing when he repents. Instead of being brilliant, he will find himself acting more like an animal, just meeting his basest needs. See, in pride, that's what we really are. We're just an animal thinking we're so great and so wonderful. Or an ant until somebody steps on us. 7 stands for completeness. And we're just going to go 7 times before things change again. God's judgment of pride will end when it has been completely eradicated from your life. So guess what? Big hint. If you get in pride, what? Repent immediately before you get hewed down and get to spend 7 seasons as a beast, right? Big hint. Verse 17. This matter is by decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. It's saying, just because you got promoted, don't think it was because of you. In Psalm 75, it says, promotion cometh not from the south, or the west, or the east. Promotion cometh from God. He puts up one and sets down another. Notice it didn't mention north. God resides on the sides of the north. So it's God that brings all those things, and if you don't give him credit for it, you have a problem and he's going to help you. It's just that simple. Verse 18. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now thou, Belshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof, for as much as all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation. But thou art able. The spirit of the holy gods is in me. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonied for 1 hour. And his thoughts troubled him, and the king spake and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee. Belteshazzar answered him, My lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies. In other words, this is bad. The same, now, I won't go on, but see what the dream is? I will explain the dream. Basically, this is going to happen to him if he doesn't repent, if he gets in pride. It was about a year later that we pick up the story now in verse 33. The same hour was fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as an oxen. That's sort of interesting. Can you see this guy out there on all fours, eating grass? And his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till the hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. Remember Howard Hughes? When he died, he had fingernails that were long like claws. He was so afraid of germs and humidity and everything else. And the reason he really died is because he was so isolated that the doctors didn't do everything. They got him in his Learjet before they got him to the hospital. He died. But see, this, we're talking about things can happen. You can lose your mind. You can, basically in those days, what were they done with him? Hospitalized him, right? Give him a bunch of meds. Verse 34. And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me. See, he was in mental illness. We call it psychosis today. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his dominion is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. And he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand, or say unto him, What doest thou? What was it that Nebuchadnezzar learned? I am really nothing, even if I'm the greatest king that has ruled in the last century. I am nothing. What do we need to learn? I am nothing. Even if you have a 4.0 in one of these classes, and even if God uses you mightily as a counselor. See, where's the danger in counseling here? Things start going good with your clients, and you start thinking you're the only counselor that has all the answers in the whole world, right? And you can handle anything. Guess what God's going to do to you? Send you a client that's going to drive you absolutely crazy. I remember seeing What About Bob? Send you a client like that, right? That's going to help you a lot to understand that you really don't have the answers, and that God is the one, and it's only by Him showing you things and helping you that you're able to help these people. And it's not really you. And even the parts that might be you, who gave you your talents?
God.
And who gave you life? God. And who kept you alive?
God.
get a hold of that and realize that that's the situation. Verse 36. And at the same time my reason returned unto me. And for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and brightness returned unto me. What do you think the chances of that happening? Let's just say we had a president that went insane for 7 years. What do you think the chances are he'd be reelected? And my counselors and my lords sought unto me. And I was established in my kingdom, and an excellent majesty was added unto me. Why? Out of pride, he had humbled himself. And because he humbled himself, God was now able to use him far more than he was able to use him before. See, it's one of those concrete walls we always talk about. You take another run at the concrete wall. Well, God will give you a concrete wall to take pride out of your life because he can't use you as long as you're taking credit for stuff, because it's going to mess up your life. Now I, King Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are true, and his ways judgment. And those that walk in pride he is able to abase. Let's look at the principles for coming out of pride here. But first I'm going to tell you a story, and then you can tell me what I should have done. Another one of these situations. Remember I told you the Bible says pride comes before the fall. Right? Let me show you what God will do in your life if you would like to get proud. Realize this time in my life I had no clue what was going on. I was not a counselor. I did not understand the principles that we're talking about in any way, shape, or form. But that's no excuse, right? Because I had read the Bible. And the Bible says those things, right? Well, I was a young man and I was driven. I was into everything. One of the things I was into was technical rock climbing. And I remember this particular instance almost as bad as the other one. And I was in the Sierra Club, and I had made it to the level of what they call, you start as an associate member, and then you become member climber, and then you become a qualified leader. Well, I had made it to member climber, and I was leading a rope team on a peak called Cathedral Peak in Yosemite Valley, which is about, it's actually not Yosemite Valley, it's in the hill country above Yosemite, about 2 to 3 miles in from the nearest road. It's actually more of a practice climb because on the front you go up vertically, but you can walk up the back type of thing. And I was about 450 feet up the face, and there was another rope team ahead of me, and they were going too slow. Do you understand? And I can remember, so I decided I was going to go around them, so I was going up another crack, and I was, placing my pitons and so on and clipping into them like you're supposed to, doing everything right. And I can remember very clearly that feeling of, boy, am I showing up. Right? And as I'm going up the crack, I'm going up ends. And I'm doing what's called a lie back. A lie back means you're using your feet are on one side, your hands are on the other side. You're using counter pressure between your hands and your feet to keep yourself on the wall. And now there's no crack. So I know it's pretty tenuous, and I reach above myself and place a piton and clip into it. And as I start releasing the counter pressure to get off the cliff, I fall. I only fall about 10 feet. And I don't think there's any problem at this particular point. Until I look down and I notice that my foot is in the crack this way, and my knee is pointing out 180 degrees the other direction. See, the rope hadn't caught me at all. As I fell down, my foot had caught in the crack that I was lie backing, and I took my whole weight on my foot. And I had broken off the main knob on the side of the foot, and it rotated 180 and just shattered the small bone in little pieces all the way down my ankle. And it didn't hurt too bad until I pulled the foot out of the crack, and it rotated back 180 degrees. And I was 450 foot up a face. So I took my pack apart, had to split the foot, and had the other guys help me rappel down to the ledge below, and they lowered a sleeping bag down, and I got to stay. And the ledge was like this, so all night you're sliding off it, pulling yourself back on it, sliding off it, pulling yourself on it. So things are not too nice. I said pride comes before the fall. And the next morning you hear this helicopter, because there's another rope team went in to get help. And you know, I really thought this was doing wonderful, right? Well, this helicopter lands beneath us, and I can see everything, and these guys jump out of the helicopter, and they walk straight up to me unroped. What they've done is they picked up the world-class climbers from Yosemite Valley. It was Jim Bridwell, Royal Roberts. I mean, these guys were like the world heroes at that time of mountain climbing. I mean, what I had done, this is how God shows you. You know, they don't even need ropes. They lie back right up the stuff straight with no ropes, no protection at all. That's how difficult this was and how great my accomplishment was, right? And so I get lowered down this face by these world-class climbers, put on the helicopter, flown out to the road. They try to set my ankle in Yosemite Valley Hospital. They can't do it because it's so shattered. They finally fly me out, go to ambulance to an Air Force base, finally have surgery, and I now have a plate and 5 screws. 4 screws in my ankle. But I was doing great, wasn't I? Wasn't I wonderful? Wasn't I fantastic? But pride comes before the fall. And so I learned things in my life. And one of them I learned is to avoid pride like it is the plague itself. But it's your choice. You can do whatever you want to with your life, right? But I just try to help you understand that maybe this could be an important thing in your life. Let's go on and look at another model. The first one we talked about there deals primarily with self-worth issues. Now let's look at a model concerning significance. And we're going to look at overcoming selfish desires. How does selfish desires relate to significance? Well, if I want to be significant in life, I want to be important. What do I want? I want to be promoted. What's that? A selfish desire. I want to have stuff, so I look important to everybody else. You know, I want to have that mansion. I want to have money like Bill Gates, right? Or I want to be promoted, or I want to be have a 4.0, or I want to have a big intellect. All these kind of things. Why do I want those things? Selfish desire. See, remember what's the self? Those 4 needs we're talking about for love and security, self-worth and significance. When you try to meet those, remember that's the self. And what is selfishness? It is trying to meet the needs of the self. In this case, we're trying to meet the needs of significance. Could also be security, could be any of them, but primarily it comes out when we're in the rat race, when we're playing King of the Hill, when we're trying to be somebody. And see, what does this model does? It says, what do you need to do? See, our previous model in pride was very clear. Repent. Okay? This one is going to tell us what are the steps you're going to have to go through to get rid of selfish desires in your life. And you're going to find out that until you get rid of the selfish desires in your life, you're not going to have peace. It's that simple. You can't get there. Selfish desire is the motivation we have to obtain or accomplish things to meet our needs. Lot's son, through incest with his younger daughter, was Ammon. And Smith's dictionary, I'll show you where I'm coming from, says that Ammon means desire. So do you see where we get this from? Okay? This is what the Bible warns us about this particular area. James 1:13. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting us. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. Who does the tempting? You, the devil, yourself. Remember the self? Who was it that tempted Nebuchadnezzar to get into pride? His self. Wanted to be somebody. But each one of us is tempted when? By our own selfish desires. What's the other thing that tempts us? Your own selfish desires. You want to be somebody. He is dragged away and enticed. Notice that. Dragged away. Then, after desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Selfish desires are the basis of sin, and they'll dominate your entire life. How many people in the world are dominated by their selfish desires? Everyone that's not saved. And how many Christians do you know that are still dominated by their selfish desires? Unless you made some significant progress in the process of salvation by faith, you are still dominated by your selfish desires. You might be socialized, so you don't stab people in the back anymore or blow them up with suicide bombs or something. But you still have those feelings. You still have this stuff inside of you. This competitive feeling that you have inside of you. Let's look at the story of Jephthah, beginning in Judges chapter 11. Jephthah means he opens. So I'm going to suggest, who is the one that opens and closes things in your life? Who makes decisions in your life? I'm suggesting it's your will. See, here we're talking about it's your will that we're dealing with, because your will decides what? Am I going to pursue a selfish desire? Am I going to let it in my life? Or am I not going to pursue a selfish desire in my life? He was born of Gilead, that's the grandson of Manasseh, the eldest son of Joseph, the son of Israel, and a prostitute. What's that saying to us? I'm suggesting that Gilead is going to stand for the Spirit. What do you think the prostitute stands for? Your flesh. How many of us have been born of the Spirit and of the flesh? Every one of us. If you're a Christian. If you're not a Christian, you're only born of the prostitute. The children of Israel usually represent those born of the Spirit. Each Christian is born of the flesh and of the Spirit. Consequently, this is the Christian we're talking about. Jephthah's brothers drove him out of his inheritance, since the flesh has no inheritance with the sons of promise and faith. If you notice, remember the story of Ishmael. In the same case, Ishmael stood for the flesh, and that's why Abraham had to send him away. Because does God want you to have this mixture between the flesh and the Spirit? Absolutely not. So God wants the flesh out of your life. Judges 11:2. And Gilead's son bare him sons, and his wife's sons grew up. And they thrust out Jephthah and said unto him, Thou shalt not inherit in our father's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. Then Jephthah fled from his brethren, and dwelt in the land of Tob, where he gathered vain men to Jephthah, and went out with them. Tob means good. So what does a person do? They go out and they try to find good things in their life. You know there are good selfish desires? We can seek things we want good for our life, but we haven't got the selfish desires yet because we haven't got to Ammon yet. And it came to pass the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it was so that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, that the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. Remember, who's Jephthah? Their will. So if you're going to overcome your selfish desires, who is going to have to lead the attack? Your will. You're going to have to decide that you don't want selfish desires in your life anymore. If you want selfish desires in your life, are we ever going to get rid of them? Absolutely not, because who chooses what you allow in your life and you don't allow in your life? You do. And it's your will, that's the part of you that does that. And they said to Jephthah, "Come and be our captain, that we may fight for the children of Ammon." And Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "Did not ye hate me and expel me out of my father's house? And why are you come unto me now, when you were in distress?" And Jephthah said, verse 9, and Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "If you bring me home again to fight against the children of Ammon, and the Lord deliver them unto me, shall I be your head?" Are you going to put your will in charge, or are you going to let selfish desires run your life? And of course, what do we want your will? We want your will to be run by what? Your spirit. Are we going to take control of this thing? Or are we going to just continue letting the selfish desires drive our life and run our life and run us over? Then Jephthah went to the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and captain over them. And Jephthah uttered all the words before the Lord at Mizpah. Mizpah means watchtower. Remember our last one analogy we just looked at? Watchtower. How about the watchers? God is seeing what's in your life. Are you pursuing after selfish desires? Are you taking care of me, myself, and I? Or are you loving other people? God sees. He knows. But what do the selfish desires want to do? Totally consume you. And Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the children of Ammon, saying, "What hast thou to do with me? For thou art come out to fight against me to fight in my land." And the king of the children of Ammon answered unto the messengers of Jephthah, "Because Israel took away my land when they came up out of Egypt, from Aram and the Amorites, even to Jabbok, and unto Jordan. Now therefore restore those lands again peaceably." What's it talk about when we're coming out of Egypt? What's that talking about? When you got saved? What did God do for you when you got saved? Put the Spirit of God in you, and when the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, is in you, what does He do? Draw you to be holy, draw you not to be selfish, draw you not to be consumed by your selfish desires. Automatically, you really don't want that stuff in your life, right? And so what's going on here? The Ammonites are saying, we want our territory back. You know that happens to quite a few Christians. They maybe, when they got saved, boom, all their addictions went out the window, everything straightened out, they were so in love with Jesus, and everything just worked out, and everything was going great. But later on in their life, what happens? Not. Who are you? I'm your selfish desires. I'm taking over. I'm coming back. You let the power of the Spirit drop in your life, and guess what comes back? And notice it mentions the Amorites. Who are the Amorites? The flesh. The flesh wants to come back in and take over. Selfish desires want to take over the Christian life. Again, that's the war that we're seeing fought here in this particular story. Verse 20. But Sihon trusted not Israel to pass through his coast, but Sihon gathered all the people together and pitched at Jabez and fought against Israel. And the Lord God of Israel delivered Sihon and all the people into the hand of Israel, and they smote them. So Israel possessed the land of the Amorites and the inhabitants of the country. When you got saved, you overcame the flesh. That whole area of the country. Now why? Because they wouldn't give in. Will the flesh give in to the Spirit? Absolutely not. And so there was a war. And you won that war. But they want the territory back. They want to take over your life again. Verse 28. Howbeit the king of the children of Ammon hearkened not unto the words of Jephthah, which he said him. He's saying, hey, God gave us the territory. This territory belongs to us. Why don't you just back off? But what do you selfish desires say? Absolutely not. We're coming in. We're taking over. This wasn't fair that God drove us out. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed over Gilead and Manasseh, and passed over Mizpah of Galilee. Remember, that's the watchtower. And from Mizpah of Galilee he passed over unto the children of Ammon. Our spirit, Gilead, our mind, Manasseh, which means causing forgetfulness, and our conscience, Mizpah, the watchtower of Gilead, or the spirit, must be enlisted to defeat selfish desires. Let me say that again. What are the things we need to win this war over selfish desire? Can the will by itself do this? Now, the will is going to have to get your mind in agreement that you want to get rid of these things. It's going to have to get your conscience, because what's your conscience saying? No, I don't want to be like that again. I don't want to go back to that evil stuff that I used to do and being selfish and sinning like I used to. I don't want that kind of stuff. So they have to be enlisted in helping you win this battle. We must make a vow to give to God whatever God chooses in order to be delivered. Now this is one of those stories. And by the way, when you see these stories in the Old Testament that just sound funny to you, or man, why in the world did they do that? Big light bulb. But it should just, light bulbs should just go off in your head. This is saying something in the spirit world that means something. See, like in Ezra, when they had to divorce all their wives and get rid of all their kids, today we say, are you kidding? That isn't right. Was this talking about the spirit? It's talking about getting rid of those evil things out of your life. In this case, it's going to be talking about that too. What if you say to God, God, you can have all the selfish desires out of my life, but I'm not going to give up this one. Are you going to win the battle over the children of Ammon? And guess what? Most of us have at least one or two favorites. They're your friends that make life just sort of wonderful. When you're down and out, or when you're stressed, or when you're bored. That's the friend that you just invite into your life. And they take care of you. But guess what you're going to have to do to overcome your selfish desires? You're going to have to be willing to give it all up. Get rid of them all. Especially that special one that is to you. Verse 30. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto the Lord and said, If thou shalt without fail deliver the children of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be that whosoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. So what's he saying? Whatever there is. In those days, by the way, the goats and the animals were in the house, and so on and so forth. So whatever comes out of my house, whatever it is, no matter how dearly I like it, even if it's my favorite calf, it is my favorite bullock, I will offer it to God as a burnt offering, because he delivered me from my selfish desires. Whatever it is, you're going to have to be willing to give it up. How many of you have heard stories about people, let's say they were really into rock music and were a wonderful guitarist? And what did God ask them to do? Give up their guitar. And then as soon as they did, he gave it right back to them. See, why did Jesus say to the rich young ruler, sell all that you have and give it to the poor? Why did he say that? Because that selfish desire was the basis of his security in life and the basis of everything. And of course we know he refused to do it. If you refuse to give up that thing in your life that the Holy Spirit tells you about, your conscience tells you, you can't be delivered from your selfish desires, and they're going to dominate your life. So Jephthah passed over unto the children of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered him into his hands. Who did the delivering? Who's going to deliver you from your selfish desires if you're willing to give them up?
The Lord.
The Lord's going to do it. And he smote them from Aron even unto Minnith, even 20 cities, and unto the plains of the vineyard with a very great slaughter, thus the children of Ammon were subdued before the children of Israel. In the battle to overcome selfish desires, we may have to sacrifice things that are very dear to us. Remember I said that? And this is the part of the story that bothers people. But you'll see when we see what it's really talking about, what it's saying. And Jephthah came to Mizpah unto his house. And behold, his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and dances. And she was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son or daughter. What is more valuable, what is closer to you that you would never want to give up in your entire life than if you only had one child and it was your favorite child? And it came to pass when he saw her that he rent his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low. For thou art one of them that trouble me. For I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot go back. Yeah, you know that alcohol? The little sip you like, the little wine you like just at night? That makes you sleep? Well, are you going to give it up or not? And she said unto her father, My father, if thou hast opened thy mouth unto the Lord, do unto me according to that which proceedeth out of thy mouth. For as much as the Lord hath taken vengeance for thee over thine enemies, even the children of Ammon. Now there's a little piece in there that I don't have here, but the daughter went out with her friends and so on for a year. And there's controversy over the story. Some people say that the sacrifice was that she never married. Other people say she was offered up as a burnt offering, because that's what he had promised. And of course to us that would not at all be acceptable to offer your daughter because you promised God up as a burnt offer, burn her to death on an altar, right? But what do you need to do? What's this really saying to us? You're going to have to take that thing. That's what breaks this thing. Is you're going to have to take that thing in your life that you're holding on to, that best friend that makes everything okay to you, that one selfish desire you don't want to get rid of, and you're going to have to offer that up to God and say, God, whatever you want, you can have. Just deliver me from my selfish desires. But the story isn't over. There's another part of the story that's very interesting that we have to really understand here. And then the children of Ephraim gathered themselves together and went northward and said to Jephthah, Wherefore passest thou over to fight against the children of Ammon, and didst not call us to go with thee? We will burn thy house upon thee with fire. Who is Ephraim? Well, Ephraim is a very interesting name because it has two meanings. One can be double ash heap, and the other can be double fruitfulness. Do you see? Double fruitfulness would say what? You think that this particular thing is great and wonderful and makes you great and it's something you need in your life and it's very fruitful, right? But maybe from God's point of view, it's a double ash heap. It's really causing you shame. It's really causing you problems. But see, there's a struggle that goes on inside you over, now, that's not a selfish desire. I mean, that's my ministry. You know, your ministry can be a selfish desire. If you're getting something out of it, if you're building your own empire, if you're doing your own thing, then God might ask you to give up your ministry. But you're going to say, what? Oh, no, that's fruitfulness. That brings life to me. I'm not going to give that up. That's not a selfish desire. And God says, but that's a double ash heap. That's bringing shame. That's destroying your life. So the Ephraimites, and notice what they're doing. They're mad at him because he defeated the Ammonites. You wake up one morning. You don't have your selfish desires anymore. And you miss them. I mean, where are all my friends? Yeah, I know they tore me down. I know they destroyed my life. I know they're a bunch of crackheads. But they were my friends. And Jephthah said unto them, I and my people were at great strife for the children of Ammon. And when I called you, you delivered me not from their hands. Then Jephthah gathered together all the men of Gilead and fought with Ephraim. Who's Jephthah again? Your will. Who's Ephraim? Your emotions. See what's going on here? Do your emotions want to give up your selfish desires? What did your selfish desires do for you? They made you feel nice. They made you feel great and okay. And now you're going to give this stuff up and only serve God and expect He's going to meet your needs? Are you crazy? And they fought with Ephraim and the men of Gilead. Who was Gilead again? The Spirit. Smote Ephraim, because they said, Ye Gileadites are fugitives from Ephraim, among the Ephraimites and among the Manassites. See what's being said there? They're saying, you guys really want to go our way. I mean, what's this deal about you will? You're supposed to be under the control of your emotions, isn't it? Sometimes we talk about what I call the emotional train. The emotional train is first you have your engine is the will. Then you have your mind. Then you have your actions. And then you have your emotions. Well, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to run your life with your will according to what the Spirit tells you, right? But what do we tend to do? Run our train by the caboose. The emotions control what we do, control how we think, control our will. Do you see the problem? And of course, emotions don't have an engine, so the only thing they can do is drag you downhill. And that's what's going on here. It is talking about that the emotions are fighting against the will. They don't want to give up the selfish desires. They don't like what's going on here. And the Gileadites took the passage of the Jordan before the Ephraimites, and it was so that when the Ephraimites, which were escaped, said, Let us go over, and the men of Gilead said unto them, Are you an Ephraimite? See, are you an emotion that's out of control here? And they say, No. And they said unto them, Say now Shibboleth. And he said, Sibboleth, for he could not frame or pronounce it right. Then they took him and slew him at the pastures of Jordan. And when there fell at the time of Ephraim 42,000. What's going on there? Well, you have to look at the two words and see the one word that they're asking him to pronounce is life-giving. So what's going on here? We to keep our life-giving emotions, but the emotions that are against us, the emotions that are for, are Selfish desires, they can't say life, can they? They don't produce life. How do you tell what you need to get out of your life? How do you tell which are the evil desires that need to get out of your life? They don't produce life. The things in your life that truly produce life in you, like the things of the Spirit you need to keep, and what do we need to kill? All the things in your life that don't produce life, they can't say life, they don't have the fruit of life in them. And Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then died Jephthah the Gileadite and was buried in one of the cities of Gilead. Unfortunately, how long is 6 years? Well, it means man's sufficiency. How long does man's sufficiency last? Not very long. So what's it saying? Throughout your life, you're going to fight battles with Ammon. And you're going to have to continue to drive off these attacks by your selfish desires that come at you over and over and over in your life, and try to take over and try to get you back to meeting those needs of the self through your selfish desires, instead of trusting God through faith to meet those. Remember what we said when we talked about salvation. Your life sort of goes like this. As your faith grows, you win the victory, but there are those dips. Those are the attacks of the selfish desires. They come in and they try to dominate your life, and they will not give you life.
Jesus is the answer for the world today. Above him there's no other, 'cause Jesus is the way. Jesus is